Live video is starting, it says. You're live.
All right, we're live. Welcome to Dulcimoon Talk number 12. This is a very exciting day. I get to talk with Kara Barnard. Kara, welcome.
Hi, Deborah. Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, this is so much fun because it just came together this week, and I love the immediacy.
Yeah, when you first asked me about it, I was thinking we were probably going to do it sometime this summer, and then you're like, no, let's do it now. So I'm like, I'm on board. Let's go.
Excellent, excellent. So Kara is a teacher, a music teacher in Illinois. Sorry about that.
You're close. You're pretty close.
I know, one of the I states. Yeah. And was our Mountain Dulcimer national champion at Winfield in September last year.
Right.
So you're the reigning queen this year.
I'm the reigning queen, wearing the crown for the year.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to have you here and talk about competitions and your career and just so many things. I'm sure we'll cram as much as we can in here.
All right. I'll talk as fast as I can.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how Dulcimer came into your musical life?
Well, I started picking up the Dulcimer I believe I was probably in my late 20s, and I'm 60 years old now. This is my 60th year, but I started playing the guitar when I was around 10 years old. And by the time I was 12, I was actually accompanying people for weddings and doing gigs and stuff like that. So I had played the guitar and the banjo for a long time before I even knew what a dulcimer was. And I moved to Brown County, Indiana, which is an artist colony. And here in Brown County, which is the town is actually Nashville, Indiana, we had a local builder named Bill Berg, and he still has Mountain Made Music, but he runs it out of his home studio now. Mm-hmm. And he was building these wonderful dulcimers, and I met a young man named John Kay, who could just play the top right off of one of them. Mm-hmm. And I was immediately mesmerized by this little instrument that could make so much sound. So it's been in my life for at least 30 years now.
So do you have more than the original instrument that you bought?
Oh gosh, yes. They talk about ukulele players all the time, hoarding ukuleles, but I tell you, dulcimer players were just as bad. I just have two dulcimers that I play all the time. Mm-hmm. And before the national, I had one dulcimer that I played behind. I don't know if you can see in the back of the picture, but yeah. my Bill Berg I've had for probably 10 or 15 years. It's not my first Bill Berg that I started on. Mm-hmm. But it's my main dulcimer, and then and it's been the only dulcimer I've played. And then right over here is the beautiful McSpadden that the guys from McSpadden gave me for winning the national. And so I kind of trade off and on because they're both so different. And I'm finding that the McSpadden's got this ebony fretboard that is just as fast as lightning, and so I'm discovering all kinds of new things on that fretboard that I wasn't playing before on my Berg. But Bill Berg, Mountain Made Music here in Nashville, and John Kay. That's what got me started about 30 years ago.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So you're still teaching among the instruments that you teach.
Yeah.
Dulcimer, what else do you teach?
My main instrument has always been the guitar. I was a heavy metal shredder in my teens and 20s and played in an all-female heavy metal band back before it was cool to be in an all heavy metal female band. I was doing that, and if you had told me back in my teens and 20s that I would ever get into bluegrass or folk music or anything, I would have just laughed at you. But I played a lot of fingerstyle guitar as well. I started going to Winfield, Kansas. The first time I went, I think, was in 90 or 91. And I went out there with one thing in mind. I was going to, of course, win what was at that point called the National Fingerstyle Competition. And I thought, well, yeah, of course I'm just going to go out there and win. There's nobody doing what I do. And so I got out there and I went, oh my gosh. And it was a humbling experience. And I mean, I kept up with everybody, but I had no idea what people were doing on fingerstyle guitar. Of course, that was before we had the internet. You didn't have YouTube and stuff. So I went to Winfield, Kansas, and with my fingerstyle guitar, and that's where I got really heavily introduced into bluegrass techniques, and just started playing more flat picking guitar out there, and definitely picked up the mandolin and started playing. I was known as pretty much as a mandolin player for a long time when I was out on the road, but banjo for sure. Yeah, so I teach guitar, and I teach all styles of guitar, from heavy metal, fingerstyle, bluegrass, classical, everything, because I played the guitar since I was 10 years old.
Right.
I teach Scruggs style banjo and melodic style banjo. I'm not a clawhammer player. Never had the patience to relearn my right hand on that. And then I play a lot of mandolin. Those are my main instruments. And of course, the dulcimer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of course, the dulcimer.
Of course, the dulcimer. And then the dulcimer is truly my love now. And we were just briefly chatting before we went live, and I was telling you, my hands at 60 they don't hold on to that guitar like they used to, and so I've had to figure out the best guitar for me to play now, where I could still get everything accomplished that I want to accomplish on it. And I've really had to be careful. And the dulcimer is just the perfect instrument for me now. Dwayne Porterfield was interviewing me after the national win, and he asked something of, was I going to compete in some of the other competitions now with my other instruments? And I'm like, I want 3 strings. That's all I want. I just want 3 strings. I certainly teach and play the rest of them all the time, but not like I play the dulcimer now.
Mm-hmm. I got to know, what was the name of your heavy metal band?
You know what? This was such an uncool name, because it was back before it was called Software. Okay, we were called Software, and that's before you really use the word software that much, and we called ourselves Software because we played a lot of, we had our keyboard player had tiers of synthesizers before synthesizers were programmable. And so what I did is I created these poster board cards. We got together and we made these poster board cards, and we would cut holes in them, and they would fit over the top of the keyboard, and we could adjust. We had markings on them. So for the different songs, we would set the synthesizers up like that, because you couldn't program them. I know, it's crazy, right? But so she was doing all these tiers of synthesizers, and I was playing this like total full out, Eddie Van Halen was my idol, and it was just total shred, and we had a drummer that just, she was incredible. So it was a good group of women, but it was at that time when it was really frowned upon for women to be playing, especially me, on the guitar, to be able to play like I was playing. It was people wanted me to be a front singer, and that was all they really wanted to hear me do.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I've had the privilege of working with Mimi Fox, who is both a jazz guitarist, and she thinks of herself as both jazz and folk. She likes to do folk. And, she's literally world renowned, right? She talks about that too, how as a young person, as a young woman coming up, she was supposed to be the singer. I love Mimi, but she's not much of a singer. But, she's worked really hard to get to that point where she was not only accepted, but is now considered a master. And can we get rid of that word, master? Could we?
Yeah, it's
expert?
It's a slippery slope, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So, yeah. Anyway, so I hear this a lot from prominent women musicians who've been doing it all their lives, which is where you are. It's kind of amazing that that was true when you were playing Van Halen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, the guys didn't want anything to do with it. I could clear out a guitar shop faster than anybody in the world. Just sit there and start doing all those finger taps and stuff like that, and the guys would just leave. They would just walk out the door. They didn't want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but you moved beyond that and you decided to come on into this competition.
Yeah.
The Dulcimer.
Yeah. So I competed. So I used to compete in the 90s. I competed in the fingerstyle guitar competition out in Winfield. I would compete in the mandolin competition here in Indiana. And then at one point in Winfield, I remember one year, it had to have been in the 90s. I was out in the campground, and of course, you get to know everybody. Someone ran out there and said, "Hey, they don't have enough contestants for the Dulcimer competition this year." This was a long time ago. Will you enter? And so I just grabbed my Dulcimer and I ran up and I entered and played without practicing or anything. And of course, didn't make the final five. I shouldn't have made the final five. That wasn't the point. I wasn't prepared at all. But then I'm trying to think of when it was that I did place in the final five. I've competed at Winfield in the Dulcimer competition 3 times. First time was just me jumping on stage because they needed me. Second time, I really wanted to do well that second time. I think it was in maybe 2005. Dwayne, I always kid Dwayne because Dwayne Porterfield and I, we tied for 4th place that year, whatever year that was. But anyway, I was prepared, but not as prepared as I was for this one.
Mm-hmm.
So third time was a charm.
What was the difference in the preparation?
So one of the things that I think has helped me, well, maturity in general, and knowing how to edit myself. Back when I was younger, it was all about flash and speed and all that stuff. Learning how to edit myself was a big one. A lot of it I really attribute to the fact that I started the Indiana State Fingerstyle Guitar Contest about 12 years ago. Me and a buddy of mine started that. And I'm in that judges room. I hire the judges. I'm in that judges room all the time with them. I run the whole contest. And I've got 12 years of really understanding what works and what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And based on my second try at the National Dulcimer competition, I felt like that year I didn't play enough traditional Dulcimer style to really hit home and place. I felt like everything was too far out there. So this year, the year that I won, I chose 4 tunes, and what had to happen with every 4 tune is I had to have every song that I arranged. The arrangement had to involve showing the tune I was playing, showing the judges that I could play a very traditional version of that tune, and that I could also play a very non-traditional version of that tune by changing the tempo, changing the chord cadence, really changing things up in a bizarre way. And all these different things, all these different components had to be existing in all 4 songs, so that judging panel, whoever it was, there would be something that would appeal at a major level to every judge in there. And they couldn't say, "Oh, she wasn't traditional enough," because I gave them a traditional thing, and then I would break into something completely different. So I firmly believe that the most important thing I can tell anyone that wants to compete is take a well-known song and turn it upside down and twist it, play it fingerstyle if it should be played flat pick. One of the songs that I played, I started on fingerstyle, then I dropped or I picked up the pick and started then flat picking it through the second part of it. So don't, you can certainly do whatever you want. I want more people to compete in the national. I will do anything I can to talk to anybody about competing and talk them into doing it. Everybody needs to try it. So if you go up there and you play 4 songs that you play well and you're not thinking about the arrangement or anything, please, what I'm saying right now, don't let that distract you from trying. If you really want to win, if you really are going out there to compete and win, you need to address those things I talked about. Really arrange your songs. When you get that arrangement done, edit, edit, edit. I started out with a stack of papers this high for my arrangement for Who Corner and for Jerusalem Ridge, and whittled and whittled and whittled that down. Hours and hours of work to get those 4 arrangements. First of all, to get those 4 arrangements correct. Then it was my job to play them perfectly. So as far as I'm concerned, arranging, if you want to win it, arranging is everything.
Okay.
You've got to do some really tasty arrangements.
Okay.
That's what's going to set you apart from everybody else.
So you mentioned to me that you, in an email, that you are dedicated to bringing at least 2 of your students as contestants from now on. So how would you work with that? I know working with any student, it's always an individual situation, their own self, how they think about themselves and then what their abilities are. But how do you lay it out for a year's work towards that?
Well, I've got 3 of them that are interested right now that are pretty serious about it. 2 for sure are going to come to the competition in 23. And what I told them, their assignment was to pick out 4 songs that would be recognizable songs, but that they needed to twist them up. Same thing I told you.
Yeah. They
needed to do some really interesting arrangements. And so one of my students, Melinda, has been working really hard on a Townes Van Zandt song. And we, every time she brings it in, it's getting closer and closer and closer, but we'll hit pockets where I'll hear her play through, 3 or 4 measures of something that is just really boring. And so I'll send her home and say, you got to do something to these measurements, right? These measures right here. You got to do something to that, dress that up, and then we'll try about 5 or 6 different things. I work really, 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 really hard, not just to grab the instrument and start writing things down for them. I've told all of them, because one of the first things they said when I said, I want you guys to go out and compete, they're like, oh, well, we'll play your arrangement of this and we'll play your arrangement of that. I'm like, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to write your arrangements for you, and you can't play anything I've already written. So they've got a tough road, but they're doing it. They're absolutely doing it.
Erin?
So Myra wrote in the chat, I don't like competitions. I bet it has to do with all the music contests in school growing up. I always scored well, but the angst leading up to it. Blech.
Yeah.
So how do you address the mindset piece of contests, and like what was your mindset, or what has worked for you to walk into that space without it feeling like it's going to steal all the joy out of playing music from you?
Right. So a few things. I can say a lot about this, and I helped back when I used to compete in the guitar competitions. I would help some of my friends get ready for the flat picking competition there too. Gosh darn, I've got so much to say about this that I think is really important for you guys to hear. First of all, competing, don't ever look at a competition as just if you are competing against other people. Look at it as if you were trying to better your own skill set. Okay, so you're trying to become a better musician, and so if you're competing at all, you're competing against yourself. Back when I used to do the fingerstyle guitar competition, I did it for 5 or 6 years. The last year I did it, I hadn't pushed myself, and I didn't really feel like I wasn't pushing myself anymore. So that's the last time I competed in the fingerstyle guitar competition. What I focused on and what I practiced focusing on was, when I got on the stage for the competition, that I was not going to look out into the audience and try to entertain them. Okay. I love entertaining crowds. I am just all about putting on a show and really engaging the audience and working with the audience. But I needed to focus on what I was playing. And in the years past, when I competed in the fingerstyle competition and stuff like that, I was usually like making eye contact with the audience. I just can't help myself. So I promised myself, first of all, that I would not make a lot of audience contact. I was going to go out on the stage and play my songs. The most important thing here is that two of the things that really inspired me to compete, there were three things that really inspired me to compete this year. I turned 60, and I wanted to do this for myself because I have such reverence for the national title and Winfield in general. I thought, I'm going to do that as a gift for myself for my 60th birthday. One of my beloved first cousins died very suddenly of a heart attack, and she was a huge supporter of my music. And for those of you who don't have pets, you won't understand anything about this, but I lost one of my cats, and that just blew me out of the water. So I felt like I needed to get through the death of my cousin and all of the deaths. I've had a lot of family loss over the past few years with the pandemic and everything. To move myself through that, I wanted to go into a place of deep meditation. And deep meditation happens when I focus on certain songs and I practice over and over and over again. Now, how do you compete and still keep the joy and the intention behind that? I promised myself when I was on stage competing, when I was actually playing my contest songs, I would not be engaging with the audience, but I would be totally spiritually wrapped up in the love that I have for all the people I lost over the last few years and my beloved cat. And I was going to be playing to them and for them and because of them. And that's what I focused on while I was on stage playing my songs.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What a great thing to hold for yourself.
Yeah.
To offer to your students
yeah.
as a way to move through it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of nerves, I have, first of all, I want to say that I don't really play much out at all anymore. I stopped in my 50s, mid 50s. I stopped really performing a lot just because it's a different kind of bit. You've got to campaign like you're running for an office when you're doing gigs all the time, like I used to do. And I lost my desire to hustle. to be hustling for the next gig. I just wanted to enjoy people and teach, teaching is my passion. So I used to play gigs though all the time, on the road with people all the time. We would play auditoriums of, full of people. I mean, I don't know how many auditoriums, how many big events I've played on big stages. Never got nervous. Loved it. You put me on a contest stage and my arms turned to concrete. So what I do, and I am here for anybody who wants to compete and you're afraid to compete. I will talk you through this. I promise you I will. I do things like exercises in which I practice getting myself as tense as I possibly can. And then I have to go and play the softest few measures of a song perfectly. Okay. I did that. We have a 400-seat theater here in town. And I would go there and I would stand behind the curtain when nobody was there, of course. I would go when they were closed and I would stand behind the curtain and go, judges, this is contestant number 4. And I would walk out at the end of the stage where I had it set up just like Winfield was going to be. And I would play my songs. And then I would go back behind the curtain again and I'd get all worked up and I'd go, judges, this is contestant number 4. And I'd do it again, right?
Right.
When I got to Winfield, I spent as much time, the contest is on stage 4 up there. I spent as much time as I could in that building playing, and I snuck in when they were doing this was crazy, but I snuck into the building and went up on the stage when they were doing the sound check, when they were doing the sound and everything for the competitions on. This was on Wednesday, and I sat on that stage and I played for 90 minutes while the contest guy doing sound set up sound. So it was a help to him. And I got to feel out, what my butt was going to feel like in the chair and all that kind of stuff. So little things like that make all the difference in the world. And I am happy to help anyone. If it means that you're going to get out there and start competing, I'm happy to help you in any way I can.
Wow.
Because it's not about winning and it's not about status and it's not about being better than anyone else, because we are all really, really good. It's just that on certain days, some of us get across a point to the judges that the other one didn't. We're all great. We all deserve it. And anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. And you should do it not because you want to be the best or considered the best, but because you deserve it. You deserve to know that you love yourself enough to do your very best, and that you can stand up to that challenge.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. There was, so we did our Dulcimoon virtual festival just about a week or two ago.
Right.
And somebody said, nobody plays the Dulcimer like you.
Yeah.
Any of you. Nobody plays the Dulcimer like you play it.
Right.
We want to hear that.
Yes.
Whatever it is, we want to hear that. And that really stuck with me. So offering it up, I mean, it's like what they did with theater in the Greek days. It's you offer it up to the gods. Perfection is not what it's about.
Right.
You're talking about spirit, and you're talking about self-expression.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's such an important thing, especially if you're playing the instrument and you're enjoying and loving the instrument, and you feel like you can take it a little bit further, but look at it, and you're not, really dig into those obstacles and ask yourself, what is really keeping me from this? What am I afraid of? Because if you go out there and you compete and you lose, you win. That's the way I look at it. You've spent the time working on the songs, and man, there's nothing better. There's no way that you can meditate any better than when you're focusing on perfecting your music. It's just the ideal situation to be in if you want to be the best person you can be.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Wow.
And it's all and do it all out of love. Don't do it out of competition. Do it all out of love, because you love yourself, because you love everyone that's around you. And I mean, I just get so high on that Winfield crowd. It's a wonderful thing.
Well, you've got me excited. Yeah. Great challenge.
Tim Grothin with McSpadden Dulcimers, we had to get our picture taken together after the competition, and I don't even know if he'll remember this or not, but I tell you what, when I found out that I had won, I was hugging, and I mean, I was hugging everybody. I'm a big hugger. Even the two guys that took second and third, I was just like beaming and hugging, and we were supposed to take our picture together, Tim and I, and then she said something like, "Get a little bit closer," and I just grabbed him. It's just so much fun. And I thought about it later about the two guys, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting names right now, but the two guys that took second and third. And after it was all over, I thought, gosh, I was just so happy and so full of love and joy for everything going on. I hope I wasn't rude with I hope my joy didn't come off as being rude, because I was just happy. I was just so happy that everything came out the way it came out, because I really felt when I was competing that people understood why I was competing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that part of it.
Yeah. I know Erin's got something to say, but I just want to say.
I've just been hiding in the background and being like, yes,
Right?
yes, all of it, yes.
Well, one of the things we talk about with Dulcimoon is it's about representation.
Yes.
Who's in the classroom and is a representative of that at the head of the classroom.
Right.
And how often is that true? And, it's women over 60
mm-hmm.
for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Though I have to say, there's an awful lot of folks like Erin Mae and Sarah Kate and Karen Alley, who's on the Hammer Dulcimer. These were all people we had teaching for Dulcimoon. There's also lots of young women who have joined the Dulcimoon community on Facebook, and it's really fascinating to hear and see what they're doing. They're posting videos of themselves.
Fantastic.
In that group. You should check it out, because we're going to encourage more of that, you know.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So we like the fact that you won, that's representation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I get that.
You totally deserve it. And you are who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So those of us who are over 60 and gray haired and have been playing Dulcimer for a long time, possibly all our lives, really appreciate seeing ourselves in that spot.
I am so glad, because I want you all to join me. That's all there is to it. You know, we need to be out there. It's you know, you think about the mountain dulcimer and its origins, you know, and it was women that started playing, you know, the mountain dulcimer for various reasons back, you know, in the Appalachian Mountains and everything. And now the competitions, it's you know, it's an interesting thing. I often, when people ask me about the difference, the gender difference between the way people compete and play, you know, I always just tell the quick story that with my young guitar students, you bring me a young boy who takes a couple lessons from me, and he's ready to start a band. He might not be the best player after a couple of lessons, but he is ready to start a band, because there's something about that child that he's been taught. Why not? Of course I can. Of course I can do that. Now, I would like to say that this has changed from the time back in my early 20s when I started teaching to now. But unfortunately, firsthand experience, I haven't seen it change that much. But you bring the same age little girl in, and she takes a couple lessons, and she's a prodigy. She can play the top off of that guitar. She's incredible. And I say, why don't you plan to do the showcase this? Because I do a youth showcase that I sponsor. I bring all my kids to this theater, and we put on this big show every year. Oh, the furthest thing from her mind. She couldn't possibly do that. She doesn't want anybody to hear her play. You know, forget about it. That is, you can look at it in a lot of different ways, but I've experienced this on a daily basis all the time. And I try everything I can to try to make that change.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the guys that go out there and go for it. I just want the women and the young girls that I teach to know that they can do that as well if they want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you know, there are plenty of women who have been national champions. Erin Mae,
absolutely.
Wendy Sange is one of them.
Absolutely.
And others, I'm sure. But it's something that it would really be lovely that it didn't feel like the exception.
Exactly. If it was just more of a commonplace thing.
Yeah.
And I think that it's more prevalent in fingerstyle guitar more than anything. And putting on the state competition, I'm always pushing women to come in and compete. But I'm lucky if I have even one out of, and back when I used to compete in the international Winfield, sometimes I'd be the only woman out of 40 players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally only woman out of 40 players competing.
Yeah.
And in the history of Winfield, we've had 3 women win the national fingerstyle competition, and that's Muriel Anderson, Helen Avakian, and Christy Lene. And I hired all 3 of them the year before last to be my judges. So I had all 3 of them on the same stage together. It was fantastic.
Yep. I'm getting a little feedback from some people who know that I'm, you know, hey, this is how I'm practicing my feminism, doing a woman-led Dulcimer event, right? Which is trying to a women-led Dulcimer community. And somebody from across the pond said, you'll be happy to know that of the tutors that I hired, 3 are women, 3 of the 4 are women. And I'm like, so the subversion is working.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a few minutes and talk about the Silver Strings program. I'm really curious about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So my average week, I teach literally between 40 and 60 students every week. Oof. I've got about 45 private students that I teach, all the different instruments that I teach. And then on Thursday, I teach Dulcimer group classes. And then on Friday, I travel around. And what I've done, it started very organically several years ago when I was invited to do a demonstration at an assisted living facility. And I thought, well, I'm gonna teach them how to play. And so I came up with a program on the spot because I was under the assumption that the folks that they were bringing in were going to be a little more capable than what they were. And so I walked into a room and I was in the middle of a circle of people in wheelchairs that were slumped over and no expression on their faces. They couldn't really, they just couldn't participate. So I took the dulcimers and I took the straps and I put them on the wheelchair arms. And then we started doing, I made a game out of like pointing to different things with the first finger, you know, so we were pointing to things in the room for a while. And then I would have them point to a number on the dulcimer fretboard. And so in that 1 hour that I spent with those people, I kind of like realized that I could help people that had had strokes, that had dementia, that had all kinds of things going on with them. If I was patient enough, I could design a program that would have them playing the dulcimer. And so what it involved was I had to really dig into what their abilities were as far as what they could visually see. So I've got this, I guess you could say it's tablature, but the numbers are huge. So I've got books full of arrangements of these huge numbers that they look at. And then my business partner that I brought in a friend of mine, Eric Rose, to sort of manage the business because I don't like contracts and all that stuff. So he handles all that part of it, but he also builds the dulcimers. And so we designed a dulcimer that would sit on top of wheelchair arms. And basically we reconfigured the string so that the bass string is in the position of the melody string, because I found out that a lot of them were hearing those lower tones more than they were hearing the higher tones. So we've totally designed a dulcimer for people who've had strokes, who have had, you know, all kinds of issues, aging issues in general. We've designed this so it'll fit on top of wheelchairs. And then I've got all this curriculum that I've designed. There are these big numbers and all these different ways that you can teach this class that works. I mean, it's incredible. Room full of people that are like this, all of a sudden, they're teenagers again, you know, and they can do it. But the important thing is we use only the melody string, and we've got big numbers on our fretboards that we wood burn in. And then there's a dot right underneath the melody string, which is exactly where they've got to put their finger. So they know exactly what they've got to press on, you know, and it's always just melody string work. But that's the beauty of the dulcimer because it's such a drony instrument, you know, they can sound great with just that melody string.
That's a lot of work.
It's been 5 years of a lot of troubleshooting and going to different places and meeting people with different abilities and figuring out what they all need. So what I've done is we have these packages and we take them into assisted living facilities. They buy the package, which includes all the dulcimers that we've built, foot props, because the people in wheelchairs, sometimes they need to bring, so we make these special foot props for them. We've got all kinds of I make special picks. We make our own picks that are big. The noters, of course, some people have probably seen the kind of noters that we're doing, but we make noters where we take a big wooden egg and put a dowel rod on it. I even have a way that I can take a bicycle glove and I run a dowel rod down through the bicycle glove and out the finger. So one woman that could move her arm, but she couldn't really do much more than that. So she would put that noter on the string that she needed to put it on the number, and she could just move her arm and the weight of her arm would hold that string down for her to play. So I say that there's not anything that anyone's got going on that I can't figure out a way to teach them how to play a dulcimer. And I've got this book that each facility gets. I go to the facility and I give them the first couple of lessons, but I'm mostly training the activities directors how to do this so that they can make it a part of their weekly activities.
Right.
And then also with the program, we've got these really high quality videos that it's just like me teaching the class. So worst case scenario, the wheelchairs can go into the rec room with a big TV. And, you know, I mean, I even trained them how to put the dulcimers on the wheelchairs. It's so cool. It's just so much fun. And we've got, I think next week we'll probably be putting out our 240, it'll be 240 dulcimers we've placed in facilities here in Indiana and in Kentucky.
Wow.
It's a cool program.
That's amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Folks in the chat are asking if you have any of those adaptive dulcimers that you could hold up and show. Do you have one near you?
I don't have any at all.
All in places.
They're all in places. And I tell you what, tomorrow, Indiana University Health Department, I'm doing a program for a group of folks with dementia. And I had to call Eric up, who builds the dulcimers. And because I've got, in my house here, I've got a dulcimer room, and I've got literally 40 to 45 dulcimers that I keep just to give to people all the time and to take out and to show people. And so I was short on some of the teaching dulcimers. And so Eric's actually going to bring some down for me, but for that program tomorrow. But yeah, I've, you know, when you at the top of the talk, you asked me how many dulcimers I have. I have 50 or 60,
Right.
but you know, but they're everybody. I often start classes in which I've got sign up sheets and I just hand them out to people, and you know, I get their information. And I've been doing this for years, just handing these dulcimers out. And I've only had one case of the person kind of disappearing into the woodwork. And I had to go chase him down and find that dulcimer again. But that's the only time, hundreds and hundreds of times, that I've just like, take this home and figure it out, you know, and meet me at class, whatever. I am so into introducing people to this instrument. I mean, there's not a better instrument in the world to pick up and play if you think you can't play anything, you know?
Yeah.
And how many times have we all met people that say, "Oh, I have no talent, I can't do that."
Right.
Like,
3 minutes with me and this instrument, you'll be playing a tune.
Exactly. Eric and I do these conferences and stuff for people with assisted living facilities and different corporations and stuff. And we set our booth up and we have people, you know, you're right, 3 to 5 minutes. And I remember there was one a few years ago that we did up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And some of the people that were working the convention walked by and stopped and they said, "How long has this group been playing together?" And I'm like, "Well, about 3 minutes, you know." It's like, yay. It's so much fun.
It is fun. It is fun. Well, Kara, we've been talking for 45 minutes, more than that.
And we could talk for a few more hours as far as I'm concerned.
We probably could. But I want to say this has been really inspiring.
Oh, I'm glad.
I am sure that your many, many students are as inspired working with you as I felt during this short time with you myself. And I'm really pleased to have actually met you finally, even though we're only online.
Likewise.
I've made a lot of friends during the pandemic that I've never actually hugged, but I'm a big hugger too. We ever meet in person, first thing.
Well, when we finally meet in person, we'll just have a hug fest.
There you go. That'll be it. And I appreciate that you made the time so quickly for us. And I know that people are going to really enjoy this talk. We do post it on our dulcimoon.com website. All of the talks we've had so far are there.
Great.
You're a very busy person, but if you ever have time, you might want to watch one or two yourself.
I'll check them out. Check them out. And,
Yeah.
and please, I want everybody watching this, if you have questions for me, don't hesitate to find me on social media or whatever. And you know, check out my YouTube channel. I've got YouTube channels with tons and tons and tons of videos and lessons.
Right.
But more than that is I'm always just a few letters on a keyboard away, you know.
Right.
Don't hesitate to reach out.
Right. Well, we will be putting this in the Dulcimoon group for sure. And we get lots of
Great.
people who watch the replay and they do type in questions. So folks, if you type in questions, please make sure to tag Kara. She
Yes,
is
please.
in the Dulcimoon group now. So
Yep.
you can tag her. The group is private because we've had some trolls. So
Yeah.
you'll only have people who've actually been members of the group who will be posting notes. And Erin,
Great.
thanks so much for the backup with the comments and stuff, and your own comments as well.
Yeah, thank you, Erin.
She knows how to use the technology. I love it.
That's fantastic.
Right. So we're going to say good afternoon at this point, and I sure hope to see you around the planet.
Hope so too. Thanks so much
right.
for your time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.